Welcome to our Inspired Startup series of talks where we interview startup founders, and we're joined this evening by Kevin O'Shaughnessy from CityHook, now known as Indigo. Is that correct?
That's it.
Okay. So I've known Kev for quite a bit. I'm really looking forward to catching up and hearing how things are going. But before we get into stuff, Kevin, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your journey. When we first met, I'd say the guts of 18 months ago, you had CityHook, which was a consumer-facing app, and you've subsequently developed, on the back of that, Indigo, which I understand is more B2B.
So we, I suppose our journey started, myself and Tom, my co-founder, started the CityHook journey not as a startup. We wanted to ship a product, and we worked tirelessly one winter before a trade show to build the CityHook product. We launched it, got some great reviews. I remember way back when, just one tweet got us some coverage on BBC. We were delighted with that.
Excellent.
And it was one of those really, really necessary problems. You know, CityHook, just for a little bit of context, is the app that I designed very selfishly for myself because I just hate airports and trying to get out of them, and I think everybody shares that anxiety or that sense of just trying to find the best option when you don't know an area to get out of an airport and get to your final destination. So that's the whole CityHook principle, and we've stuck with that tried and true. But we built the CityHook product for any type of travel consumer to make it easy for them to find in one place, kind of the meta search or the comparison of taxi, train or bus. We worked tirelessly one winter to get that running, and we just launched it. There was no real startup story. We just said, let's run the product. Let's get it out there. Let's see what happens. And we just kept going.
And you got featured on the BBC?
Got featured on BBC.
People would love to hear about how you did that. That's a real coup. Every startup, that's the, how does something like that happen? Is there a bit of luck, or is there a little bit of...
Yeah, it was a really lucky moment for us. And what was really exciting about it was, way back when, I'd only a few Twitter followers. There wasn't really that much activity. I was really just a listener rather than a speaker on Twitter. But I was following a couple of people, and I suppose I got a couple of follows back. And I think what's key with journalists is that they're just looking for a good story. And maybe for this person, Carmel at the time, she found a great story in what we were talking about, and she thought there was something unique about it. We featured on their travel show at the time, and it was something that ran on News 24, their news channel. And they had a segment on reviewing travel technology and what was good to make your journey more easy to happen, and that's where we fit. I'm not sure what we featured next to and what the other guys were, but I remember seeing the video and I was very proud. Tom was delighted as well, and it's more really the connection with that journalist and what they thought was newsy, and just making it a great story for them to tell. And there's books and blogs and stuff written about this. In fact, Des, you're very good at this, but the whole effort that we put behind it was try to make it relevant and try to make the communication about the product easy, so that when you landed on the website or you heard about it for the first time, that you got it. And I thought that was really, really important for CityHook at the time. And even our first landing page was get out of the airport. Just find the best way between airport and city. We've stuck with that since.
Distilling down your message.
Exactly.
Even the name CityHook did that really well. It kind of condensed it quite well. But then you went and changed.
No, wow. Yeah, well, we didn't change. We're still loyal to our CityHook brand. It's a consumer app. And we noticed after we'd launched our applications, we built an app for Android and iPhone, that what was the scaling factor? What was the thing that we could do on a predictable basis just to get more users, more traffic? I mean, the business plan was always going to be, look, just get people transacting in the app, do whatever it took. But it turned out that we were around about the same time as we were realizing this is not going to be cheap, this isn't going to be easy. We realized that there were a lot more companies, some of the biggest and some of the smallest in the travel space, trying to solve the same problem for passengers. And around about the same time, like I said, we said, look, let's just take a punt on this. Let's try a B2B product. Let's make it possible for everybody to do what we're doing, because we created the app because there was no other service to do it at the time. And that's where the Indigo product came from.
Okay.
And we've been working on that ever since. So while we're still big fans of the CityHook brand, and we'll still build great apps
Mea
for
culpa,
CityHook.
yes.
But you know, it's
so to expand on Indigo, which is the, I suppose, B2B element of what
That's
you're doing, can you tell us how's that progressing and how's that?
It's been a really interesting journey. We secured some angel funding around November last year.
Congratulations, by the way.
So look, the real congratulations has to go to the customer story, and that's still down the road. But we started building relationships with suppliers across Europe because they believed in what we were building. And they still believe in the overall mission, which is to make the passenger journey easy. Yeah. Our customers still believe in that too. They've become some of the big guys and some of the small guys in the travel business. And we're really excited about where that'll go. But it's been just growing the team, scaling our operations, making sure we've got the right suppliers in the right markets, growing it on the map and growing it on the technology side as well. We face some really fun problems, but the
tell us about some of those. I'm sure that's the kind of things people at home would love to get some insight into. You know, the challenges and you know how you overcome those and sidestep them.
Well, I'll tell you one of the fun problems we had early on was trying to address the scale problem, and it's usually something that you're recommended not to do. I think every company's journey will be unique to them, and
maybe you can explain why people would be recommended not to address the scale.
I think the universal rule I'd heard up until we started selling to some of the big guys was you need to focus first on the product and then try to make it big and fast. And you get a lot of chatter about how wasteful you can be trying to get the Amazon stuff or whatever platform you're on super scaled and super fast, and you know, self-scaling, self-healing, whatever you're doing, you know, it's important.
But you take your eye off the customer at a cost.
You do, but it's our customers that shaped our direction for us, and it's by listening to them that we realized, okay, we have to make it fast. That on and running was a feature for them, and it was really important to them that we could show that we could scale. So it was like we've spoken to some of the largest and are continuing to work with some of the largest infrastructure brands to make sure that we're running at the right speed. But speed became a very big factor and a very big focus for what we were doing, and we hit the targets, which is important. But it was. Did you have to build a technical team to achieve that, or? That's right. Yeah. So that's a tough thing for a startup to do anyway, from a budget perspective and from sourcing perspective. I think.
Did you do that in-house, or did you do a combination of in-house and external?
There's two types of external. I think you can work very well with contractors. They're not the PAYE type employee, but they're still a core member of your team, and you can work well with them as long as they spend a certain amount of time in the office and you're spending a lot of time with them face to face. It's hard to, in my opinion, innovate when you're sending it offshore, or when you're not, and even if you are, you still have to have the face time, you still have to have a personal relationship, and you have to have a development team that are invested in the product personally. And it's hard to do that. I'm not saying it shouldn't be done. I'm not saying that it's a bad idea. It's harder to get the same results.
Looking at the challenges you've had, and then the area of scaling, and then was there any lessons you learned from scaling? Just other people that are in a position where they're trying to work out how they scale a business. Is there anything?
There's an interesting thing that I wasn't expecting to find when we tried to get our platform up to speed, and that is there are no best practices that are universally applied or shared. You get a couple of blogs talking about high availability and high performance computing, and it's really an element that's in its infancy out there. I mean, you'll get, if all you need is a simple platform for one region, any of the hosting providers like Rackspace or SoftLayer or AWS, they're great companies to work with you. And they do invest actively in startups. They'll help you work with them to get the best results. But it's hard to get the right pattern apart from the one that you discover on your own. There are no recipes for making it quick worldwide. There are no recipes for finding the right balance in terms of scale. It seems that everything is a combination of heuristics, secrets, and
Figuring it out,
I suppose figuring it out at the last minute. It's the phone call at 4 a.m, or the little tweet notification, or something has gone down, and that terrifies every CTO out there. So it's a combination of all three that helps you scale the right architecture.
Okay, so thinking, I suppose, along the line of challenges, but moving away from the technical side of things. I know your co-founder Tom is based in Italy most of the time.
That's right.
So how do you find that? It's quite a diverse. I know you guys have been working together like that for years, but how do you? I mean, I'm sure people will be interested in hearing how you, I suppose, combine as founders to run a business kind of in such a geographical diversity.
I think it's just lucky that Tom and myself are, we're both very tolerant people, we're both very emotional people. We're invested quite a lot in what we do, so that helps a lot. It's one of the things that I had coming into the project, that we had experience working in a remote team, in a remote setup. I was based in the Dublin office of a company that was working between California and Taiwan. So, you're working in time zone problems, you're working with language and cultural problems, you're working with communication tool issues. And, we've been very, very mindful of having the right communications software, whether it's just being on Skype at 10 o'clock every morning just to see each other. I think there's, the name escapes me all of a sudden, there's a great new kind of hip chat alternative that's out there called, is it Swipe or something? It's a really, really cool way to just see each other on webcam all day. But it's a combination of the technologies and tools that we use for communication that keeps us together. So we co-locate every once in a while. At the beginning, I'd spend some time in Milan, Tom would spend some time in Dublin, just to make sure that we had that, mindfulness of one another and that respect for one another on the project, because we were working on quite diverse things. In travel, it's important to have technology and content, and we identified with that straight away. So it was important that we were aware of what was going on, and that's where we I suppose, started, like we mentioned.
Okay, and where did you meet Tom? Were you both working on the same different companies or similar projects, or how did that?
So Tom I met serendipitously in college, and I was actually working on another project at the time, and so was Tom, and we just got on and we stayed in touch afterwards, and we said, it would be interesting to start something together at some stage, and we knew that early on. So I remember we had a couple of conversations over Skype, and we were still kicking the ideas around, and sure, this is all very early stage, and it's like, what's going to happen with this guy? And it was likewise for him. He had no idea. But we just took a punt on one another, and I remember we had our first conversation of what became CityHook over Skype. I kept the screen grab. It's pretty cool. But we were sort of
to get framed at some point.
Maybe, but
frame that screen grab.
It's one of the communications tricks we use, because Tom's remote. It's hard to whiteboard, so we use digital styluses just to sketch on screen, and there's less ceremony about communicating with Word documents and graphing tools. We just sketch, and he gets the idea, and I get the idea straight away. So it's important to do that. But way back when, that's when we got the idea for sitting, and we're sketching it out there, going, "This is it. This is brilliant."
Okay. You mentioned kind of communicating by sketching, which is a really interesting way of, I suppose, co-communicating when you're in different locations. Your own background. I understand you kind of got development, software development, but also design, which is a little bit of left brain, right brain stuff, I would suggest.
So I don't know about that. I think it's a good strength to have, certainly to be able to work with other disciplines. You're dealing in, I suppose, in a growing company with finance and accounting, which you mightn't know, but it's important to have the language. Design as well, and it happened that through college I paid for beer by being a designer, and it was just because I was pretty strong at using computers that got me into it, but just by virtue of doing so much of it.
When you say being a designer, is that a web designer or graphic designer? Or
more graphic. We were still in the days of print back then, and I remember putting up the first
flyers
website
for college societies.
That's it, exactly. But even summer jobs were quick print, because that was a great place to be effective and to explore things like Illustrator and Photoshop way back when. And those things are really, really old, so it stayed with me ever since. But being able to communicate visually really helps connect with users, for example. So Way back when, my first proper IT job, usability was a big focus there, and that stayed with me ever since. So I'm fortunate from that respect, and I always think about the user as the center of everything we're designing, and making sure that everything we're doing is to buy another click or to get through to the right type of, get the right impression on the user, and making sure that they love what they're using. Otherwise, well, why would they use it? So there's kind of that.
The make it beautiful principle.
Well,
I've heard it
make
called.
it useful first,
Make it useful,
but then
yes.
make it pretty.
True, that's a good way of looking at it. And I suppose that's an interesting perspective. A lot of people are very heavy on tech, they're heavy on design, maybe they're heavy on creativity, but a lot of people don't span those disciplines. Have you got any, I suppose, lessons, or is there anything you would suggest to people being in that position? Have you learned anything that I suppose people would find useful?
That's interesting. I don't have a good answer for you, Des.
Okay.
But I always think that it's important that you roll up your sleeves and you try, and just by virtue of trying, learn the language of the other disciplines. Like I said, you're going to have to learn how to use a solicitor properly. You're going to have to learn how to use an accountant properly. And these are great professions that are great at doing what they do, but you need to know how to work with them effectively. So you need to know a certain amount of their language, and they need to know a certain amount about yours. So finding the right guy, I suppose, is just as important as knowing how to work with them. But learn the language of your collaborators, and I think you'll go a long way. I think is one thing I'd like to look back on. Just roll up your sleeves and take it as a vocation, and take it with determination, and take it completely. Okay,
all in. It's a kind of a theme I hear from a lot of founders, that if you're going to do it, you've really got to commit.
Yeah.
And there's no other way, and it doesn't really matter if you've got a lot of learning to do, or you don't have certain skills. If you really commit, all that stuff will almost become irrelevant, because you can apply yourself and pick it up. Is that something you found, or do you have any kind of experience around that?
I think that the sooner you commit to something, the easier it'll be on yourself. It's easy to kind of think about doing a startup, or to think about a project, or to work on something, or to have an idea. It's only when you throw it. It is an all-in. Like I said, it's an all-in story. You'll find that there's a certain clarity that goes with it. It's not that there's no turning back. It's not that you're burning bridges. It's just that there's a clarity in what you're doing by committing to something completely. So, for example, when we started in Launchpad, it was, look, just go all in on this. Whatever's going on, just do it completely. We're fortunate enough to be in Wyra as well, and that means that we...
Shout out to Wyra, we can give a bit of a plug there.
Both are great programs, and they suited us for the different spaces we were in at the time.
Maybe you can tell people that are watching a little bit about Wyra, the program, and I suppose what you guys have got out of it.
So Wyra is really interesting in that it is, first of all, an international accelerator, and one of the really seductive parts about it is because it's corporate venturing on a massive scale. They're based in, I think it's 14 cities around the world. You're connected automatically to friends in South America, in Germany. I'll actually be in Wyra Munich next week to do some work with one of our customers over there. So
there's a real community within the Wyra.
There is, and it's one of the great things about it as well, that you have the community, but also a potential customer base in dimensions that even you can only have so much fun segmenting the different types of markets that Telefonica produces. But they are a great company. I'm massively biased, of course, but the opportunity that they create for companies going in is immense.
You mentioned the term corporate venturing. Mm-hmm. I suppose to expand on that, the Wyra model gives you access to a whole range of markets that they're in. How beneficial has that been? And I suppose, would you have any kind of takeaways around that?
Well, it's been great for us. It's exactly what we need now, because it gives us the opportunity to have a great reference customer when we're talking to other customers. It gives us a great reference investor when we're talking to some of our collaborators in Spain, for example, and we're very fortunate to be working with them from that respect.
Is that focus on giving you a corporate or an enterprise level client or customer from the off, and they actually nurture you in that direction? Has that been beneficial?
For us, we're very fortunate to be part of them. Like I said, we're quite happy there. But what's great about it is that it does present that real commercial attitude, that real commercial focus. It is that reference customer when we need it, as well as a great reference investor for some of our collaborators abroad. It's been value beyond the investment for us, and it's been beneficial for us beyond the time that they've invested in us. So it really is a multiplying effect just by virtue of working with them. And like I said, we're really happy to be part of that.
Good stuff. So I suppose moving things up till quite recently, you guys got funding, some angel funding before Christmas. As I said, congratulations. Do you have any tips for people that are trying to get funding for their business?
We're working with some great investors. They're really interested, they really care about what we're doing. But what's important in terms of advice that I could give anyone, and it's, I hope it doesn't sound too trite, is to not focus on it. It becomes a large part of the startup journey is to worry about funding. And rightly it is. It's, when you're raising a round, it is a full-time job, and it deserves the attention that you spend on it, but it shouldn't be your focus. Your focus is your product and your customer, and it should only be that. And scaling both of those as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And I think from all the advice I had heard running up to it, the common trend is if you get those two things right, investment should take care of itself, and I can't echo that enough. It's important that you focus on what's essential to your business, which is your ability to create a great product and to scale a great market.
And how are you, coming out of that and directly from that, how are you finding the process of onboarding customers?
We're in a fun sector in travel. It's a particularly difficult sector to be a startup in, but we relish the challenge. It's great for us, and we're fortunate to have had some experience in that before to bring it in and to know what to expect. It's quite interesting because like I said, we deal with small companies and big companies there. Working with other small companies as big as ourselves is great fun because they've got some wild ideas. Ideas that we wouldn't know what to do, or we'd only dreamt about doing, or we're somewhere far down the roadmap. But this is a great opportunity to bring innovation to travel where it's others building on top of what we've done, and it's very gratifying to see that, and it's great to see somebody using our API and building new products with that, and that's really exciting for us. And the big guys require a lot of attention, but it's worth it. And like I said, we've had some great customer input from the beginning, and that's what's helped us shape where we are today. And there's a lot of excitement around it, but it takes a long time and a lot of attention.
You mentioned your API there. It's a very interesting, I suppose, business model. Mm-hmm. Ultimately having your data and then sharing it with people and allowing them to build products and build businesses around that. Mm-hmm. How did you decide on that model, and how is it working out for you guys?
So when we took our B2B decision, we knew that we would be integrating. And the word integrating means, to work with and to connect in some way on a technical level, on a business level. So we planned a roadmap of great product around making it easy to integrate. Whether it was a core API or some great web plugins, or we tried to make it as broad as possible to appeal to the widest range of travel company or startup company out there. So that's the decision we made. We decided, look, we would be the component of a really, really interesting market, and kind of once we'd parked in its own brand, the CityHook product, we could focus on B2C there. It meant that we had to apply the learnings from CityHook to the Indigo product and to understand what our now customers would need in order to sell to theirs. So that's where the focus went. That's what we built, and we designed it with integration in mind from the outset.
Okay. I suppose then taking things right up to today, where do you see the industry going, the space that you're in?
It's a really interesting space. It doesn't, we're in a very small niche of a very, very big industry. Travel is the world's largest industry. And overall, we found what we think is a great niche for ourselves to grow in. There are exciting things happening in the space, and I'm always surprised, even if it seems very, like it's a small component of what everybody does. But we're very excited by the direction. It's learning a technical maturity, it's learning a product maturity, and I think it's going to be a very exciting space to work in.
Okay. We're going to discuss trends in the industry, in travel, and in general, and what you've seen from your own experience as an entrepreneur.
Wow. It's hard to predict the future. It's hard to really know if what you're working on is the right thing until you see people's reaction to it, and finding the right way of communicating with more and more of them, the so-called product market fit. I think the more you're talking to customers, the better your product will be, and I think the more you're thinking about how to find more customers to talk to, the better you'll be. Around that, I suppose do what you love. It's the most trite thing in the world to say, but it's going to be a vocation. If it takes off, it is going to be your vocation. And it is going to be, even if it's only for a couple of years or just a couple of months while it's starting, it has to be a real vocational thing. It has to be like we were talking about, an all-in type of situation. As for the trends, I don't know. I think what's really interesting about being a small company is that you get to invent the trends to a certain extent. And it's the guys that sound completely mad today might be just designing the trends that we perceive tomorrow. But by then it'll be too late. It'll already be the old standard way of thinking about it. So always be looking to do something new and innovative, but always with a grounding that there will be a lot of demand for this. And that should be a key component of what you're doing. It makes design so much easier when you've got customer voice. It makes building so much easier when you know what you're building for and where it's going. So that's what I think makes a great starting pad for a new business idea.
Okay. And finally, you touched upon the whole holy grail of the startup world, product market fit. It's something that some startups run away from, some get really good at. How have you found that whole area with CityHook? Do you have any lessons on how you would get to product market fit quicker? Is there anything you would have done differently? And ultimately, any kind of things you'd like to share on that?
I think you need to have two voices, and I do distinguish between them. And I do have two different types of conversation with my team around current and future. And I think it's important that you look ahead and you're thinking of where this could all go, and think the big ideas and have the wild, crazy stuff going on, and make sure that when you're being creative, when you're putting weird, wild stuff up on the whiteboard, that it is actually kind of cool, and that's where you see the trend of your own business going. That's where you should point it. But also there's the kind of grounded in reality and the super focused and get this done as quickly as possible. What we found in particular was that the faster we focused with CityHook and the faster we focused with Indigo, the more time you'll have. And you can think big, but you need to act as small as possible and as fast as possible. And I think if you, in my opinion anyway, if you get to doing that sort of focused work, the better you'll be and the more runway you'll have for yourself. Okay, so folks, that concludes our talk this evening with Kevin O'Shaughnessy from CityHook and Indigo. And before we go, Kevin, maybe you could tell people how they can find out more. The easiest thing to do is to try CityHook for yourself. You'll find us on the App Store and soon on Android again, or follow us on Twitter at CityHook. Indigo, hopefully you'll find it around you when we start working with more and more partners, but you can always find us on indigo-connect.com. Okie doke. Thank you, folks, and hopefully you'll join us for the next in our series of Founders Talks.